So while a lot of us have our eyes on what's happening in Gaza, one of the things I've continued to say on this show is that we cannot forget about the West Bank, right? Because it's really easy to forget about what's happening to Palestinians in the West Bank because there is the genocide in Gaza. Did you know that Israel has actually been hosting real estate events in the United States and in Canada to purchase homes in the West Bank? Now, again, these are the settlements. These are not homes that are available. People live in these homes. And this is also against international law. Now, there was actually a gentleman who actually stood up against this, and he is, in fact, Jewish. And he had some things to say. I want to go ahead and get into that clip here. And by the way, this was shared by, please follow him, the Muslim lawyer. Real estate seminars in the US and Canada selling West Bank settlement homes. So the gentleman that you're about to see on the video, his name is Rich Siegel. He's a Jewish resident of Teaneck, New Jersey. At last night's Teaneck Township Council meeting, he was raising concerns about a real estate event selling settlement lands in the U.S. or to the U.S. and to Canada. As Mr. Siegel argues, this would be in violation of domestic and international law. And I'll show you the other schedule for that as well that Margaret Kimberly shared in just a second. But let's get into this speech here from Mr. Siegel.
Hi, my name is Rich Siegel. I'm a 25-year homeowner here in Teaneck. I'm Jewish. The reason that I'm telling you that I'm Jewish is because I have a concern about something that's going on in the Jewish community. On March 10th, there is scheduled to be an Israeli real estate sales event at the Keter Torah Synagogue. That event violates both domestic law and international law. Violates domestic law because we had a Civil Rights Act in 1965 and a Fair Housing Act in 1968. We don't allow real estate events to be for whites only, for Jews only, or anybody only.
Let's pause here for a second. So yes, as you probably can imagine, those real estate events, they're only selling these homes to people who are, in fact, Jewish. And I'm actually going to show you a video of a guy who actually got a ticket to that event, but he's not Jewish, and you'll see him get turned away. So yes, that is a violation of international law and domestic law. I mean, imagine if we were going back to the 60s where they were refusing to sell homes to other races, and they were only willing to sell homes to white people in the United States. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still discrimination when it comes to real estate, and even when it comes to renting as well. And I've experienced that myself. So here we are again. I told you before, I feel like we're going backwards. We're not going forwards.
Now, as Jews, we don't get to fly under the radar and break the law and hide it in a synagogue. It violates international law because West Bank settlement homes are going to be available for sale at this real estate event. On the website, it lists 3 different West Bank settlements. Those settlements are in and of themselves illegal by international law. If we allow this sale to go through, we are enabling a local synagogue to violate both domestic anti-discrimination laws and international law. Now, there's other reasons we shouldn't allow it, okay?
Let me pause for a second. I want to just point your attention for a second to the other people in the room. Notice the people behind him. You see, there's a black man here, and there's actually, if you look by his elbow, there's a black woman sitting here. So just FYI.
There's a genocide going on right now. I don't care who that offends. More than 35,000 people have been killed. More than 13,000 children have been killed. People in this community are in deep mourning. People in this community are angry. I'm angry. What this real estate event is going to do is it's going to fan the flames. If it goes forward, there will be a demonstration. I know there's going to be a demonstration because I'm going to organize it. It will be very well attended. What I'm saying needs to be done is, I don't know how much power this mayor and this council have to actually shut down the event, but I know you have the power to recommend that it be shut down. And I'm asking you to please do it. We don't need to have more divisiveness in this community, okay? We don't need to have Jewish privilege rule the day by saying we're entitled to break the law and have this real estate event and not care about how so many people in this community feel about it. Thank you for letting me speak.
So, yeah, and it's not just his neighborhood. It's not just Teaneck, New Jersey. New Jersey, by the way, is incredibly diverse. I don't know if all of you have ever been to New Jersey, but incredibly diverse, large international communities in New Jersey as well. But I want you to see the evidence for yourself. Again, shout out to the Muslim lawyer. Again, he actually captured this video as well. And you can see the flyer here, Israel Real Estate Expo, Thornhill. So again, it's not just Teaneck, New Jersey.
We are going to the Israeli Real Estate Expo in Thornhill today at 9 a.m. This is how we do things in Canada. Register, there's laws, there's rules, you register, no problem. Keller Williams sells real estate in Modin Illit. Where is that, they say? Oh, it's in Israel? Okay. Why don't we go on Google, though? On Google, you type in Modin Illit, and what does it say? It's a settlement in West Bank.
Okay, guys, does everybody see this? So you see what's happening here? You have Keller Williams, which is a pretty popular real estate company from what I'm aware of. At least they're well known here on the East Coast. They're participating in this. So it's not just a synagogue getting together to decide, let's sell these homes in the West Bank to people in the US and in Canada. You also have Keller Williams that's involved in this. Now, this particular guy in this video is in Canada. It's happening in the US and in Canada. See, what they do is they notice everybody has their eyes on Gaza right now. So they figure they can pull this while everyone else is turned away.
So now they're claiming the West Bank is Israel? Interesting. In Canada? Let's go there and clarify with them what's going on. Let's go to the police and maybe make a police report saying it's against international law. How's it against international law? Foreign Affairs site says occupied territories and settlements. Canada does not recognize permanent Israeli control over settlements. Then it says,
okay, Canada doesn't even recognize that. Doesn't even recognize it, but they're doing it anyway. And they're doing this at synagogues. Be Easy says, wait, that was in the US. I'm confused. Or B, excuse me, says, wait, that was in the US. The first video was in the US, was in New Jersey. This second video is in Canada. So it's happening in the US and in Canada. And I want to show you this as well, because Margaret Kimberly from the Black Agenda Report, she actually was able to share the entire schedule for the real estate event here. I want you to see this. So Margaret Kimberly said, hashtag ethnic cleansing. It says, welcome to the great Israeli real estate event coming to the US and Canada. So this is happening for the next 2 weeks. You see Montreal, that is today. Okay. And it's at the Spanish and Portuguese synagogue. Toronto is Thursday. That's at the Bay T. I don't know what that is in Toronto. The Teaneck, New Jersey one, that was the guy who spoke first. He was talking about this event coming up. That's Sunday. So you see, he got the word out before the event actually started. You have Lawrence, New York, which is Tuesday, March 12th. That's at Young Israel of Lawrence, Cedarhurst in Cedarhurst, New York. And you also have Flatbush. And I'm familiar with Flatbush, because I used to live in Brooklyn. I used to go shopping on Flatbush because everything there was incredibly cheap. Flatbush is Wednesday, March 13th, and that is at the Kai B'nai Yaakov Simcha Hall. And I Sorry if I mispronounced that. But that is in Brooklyn, New York. So do you see this, guys? Like, they have an entire flyer here for these events selling homes that are in the West Bank. Again, these homes are not theirs to sell. The settlements that they have in the West Bank are also illegal according to international law. Now, there was one gentleman who tried to attend one of the events in Canada, and he is not Jewish. And I want to show you just how quickly he was shut down. And this is how you know, again, it's not like they're trying to, they shouldn't be trying to sell those homes anyway, but it's not like they're trying to sell to everyone. Censored Man captured this. He said Jews in Canada were selling land in illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank. A man refused to enter the synagogue because he wasn't Jewish, even though he had registered for the event. Check this out.
This is private property. Actually, where are you from? I'm from here. Here, where do I park for this? I don't care. It's not both here. This is private property. I registered. Where do I park? This is all private property. Yeah, I registered for the event. Where do I park? You can park at my house if you want. Where? At my house. Why? I registered for the property. That's your problem. No. So who can park here only? Jews only? What is it? So this is the private synagogue. No, but I registered.
So you see what's happening here? He registered for the event online because he knew what they were trying to do. So he wanted to go to this event to see what's happening. So probably so he can document it, who knows? But notice how they're turning him away immediately. So he already registered for the event, but we know why we're not allowing him in.
Sure. I don't care what you do. Who are you from? Where are you from? I'm from here. Which property are you from? I'm from here. So I'm gonna get it. Where do I park if I register? You can park in hell. Why should I park in hell? Because you're wearing that shit on your head. What shit is on my head? You're representing a synagogue and you're calling this shit? Of course it is. From a synagogue? Think for yourself, sir. Where do I register for them? Where do I park? Sir, are you Jewish? I'm not Jewish, no.
See? And this, they give away the game right here. They say, are you Jewish? And he says, I'm not Jewish. No. Now on his hat, you'll see it in a second. His hat says Palestine on it, right? So he did this on purpose because he wanted to show you how even in Canada, right? And even in the United States, it's not just happening in Israel, how they are discriminating against people who are not Jewish.
Why are you here? Because I registered for a event. Why did you register for that? Because they're selling land. I'm interested in purchasing land. Not for you. Have you signed up? Yes, I registered right here. I'm showing you my registration.
So did you hear what that guy said? He said, not for you. And this is all captured on video. Watch this.
Why did you register for that? Because they're selling land. I'm interested in purchasing land. Not for you. Have you?
You hear that? That guy right there, he said, not for you.
Signed up? Yes, I registered right here. I'm showing you my registration.
I just want to know why you're here. I'll let him handle it.
I want to buy property.
Oh, you do?
That's why I'm here. I registered. I want to buy property.
So why are you wearing that hat?
I'm confused. To buy property in West Bank, you can't wear a hat.
You can wear a hat, right?
Google says it's in the West Bank. Palestine is West Bank, so I want to buy property.
No, that's not right. You understand?
Palestine is not in West Bank.
So everybody can see what's happening here. And I'm so thankful that Middle East Eye actually captured this, as well as the Muslim lawyer on Twitter, that they captured this information. Because again, while we are talking about Gaza, it is very easy to forget about what's happening in the West Bank. And they knew that people would be distracted by the war. So of course, they take this time to try to sell these properties in the West Bank. Again, against international law and domestic law. And I want to show you this as well, because they called this out on Al Jazeera about how people are now distracted. I want to show you how the tensions in the West Bank have actually escalated. So let's go into this for a little bit here.
As the world is fixated on Israel's bombardment of Gaza, Israeli forces and settlers have escalated their violence in the occupied West Bank, continuing a long-standing agenda of ethnic cleansing to take over Palestinian land and cement a Jewish majority in historic Palestine.
I never felt this level of genocidal fervor from the Israeli side. The mood in the West Bank is of fear and deep terror.
The gloves are off, so to speak. They know that the world is not watching, and so Israel can get away with even more in the West Bank than they usually do.
At least 100 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank since October 7th, including at least 30 children. Israeli forces have also carried out mass arrests, closed many roads, and increased the number of checkpoints to restrict people from moving. They've doubled the Palestinian prisoner population, and Israeli settlers are attacking Palestinians and have forcibly displaced entire villages. Some settlers are threatening Palestinians with leaflets that tell them that if they don't escape to Jordan immediately, they will be violently forced out.
Pause for a second. So you see what's happening in Gaza? They're trying to push them into Egypt. In the West Bank, they're trying to push them into Jordan. And that is to completely cleanse the land of the Palestinian people. And so that all the rest of that land will officially belong to the state of Israel. We have to share this with as many people as possible. Again, it's not just about Gaza. It's also about the West Bank as well.
Many in the West Bank are saying this is the most danger they've ever felt in their lives.
Palestinians feel that they're collectively under attack.
The West Bank and Gaza are both Palestinian territories that have been under Israeli military occupation since 1967. Unlike Hamas-ruled Gaza, the cities of the Israeli-occupied West Bank are controlled by the Palestinian Authority, whose security forces coordinate with Israel to control the Palestinian population.
Yep.
The nearly 3 million Palestinians who live in the West Bank have no freedom of movement, no rights, no citizenship, and can't vote in Israeli elections, despite the fact that they all live under Israeli rule.
So did you hear what she just said about how they can't vote in Israeli elections? So when people give you that talking point that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, make sure you mention that to them.
Since October 7th, the Israeli military has ramped up its assaults there, bombing a mosque and refugee camps.
لا يزال بعدنا احنا منطول في الاشلاء اللي تحت الردم ولا يزال بعدنا نركب الاحداث تبعته.
Inside Israeli prisons, reports have emerged of Israeli authorities punishing Palestinian prisoners with beatings, raids, by limiting food and access to medical clinics and canceling their relatives' visits. Then there's the surge in violence by armed Israeli settlers who are protected by Israeli soldiers. The Israeli newspaper Haaretz reports that Israeli soldiers and settlers detained 3 Palestinians from the West Bank village of Wadi Asik, beat them, stripped them to their underwear, urinated on them, and extinguished burning cigarettes on their bodies. This video from October 13th shows an Israeli settler aiming his gun.
Yeah, we can't show that part. I'm just going to fast forward a little bit here. Here we go.
In the village of Qusra. 2 more Palestinians were killed on the way to those men's funeral the next day. Here's what the mayor of that village told CNN about what life is like under the constant threat of violent Israeli settlers.
The situation is so bad. You can't even describe it. We're living in a devastating psychological state. None of us can sleep.
In fact, nearly 500 people have been forced to leave their villages in the past week, fearing for their safety.
We have seen 8 Palestinian communities completely ethnically cleansed. There are people that have been on this land for decades. They were all forced out of their homes.
More than 500,000 Israeli settlers live in the occupied West Bank, claiming a biblical right to be there. But even though these settlements are illegal under international law, they continue to expand, and the Israeli government has increasingly emboldened and empowered the settlers in recent years.
So one of the things I want to add here is they continue to use the excuse of religion. Religion is a belief, right? So you have the right to believe in whatever religion you want to believe, but it is a belief. And the problem that you have now is that, of course, Israel is trying to, they say, establish a Jewish state, a religious state. I really don't believe in religious states. I don't think there should be any state that is basically governed by like one religion. I don't believe that. I'm glad we don't have that here in the United States. Imagine if you were forced to be Christian, right? How would you feel about that? And then if you refuse to become Christian, imagine if they told you you had to leave the US and you had to go to Mexico or you had to go to Canada. Now take it a step further. And let's say instead of just focusing on the religion, they're also trying to ethnically cleanse the land. So what would that mean if that happened here in the United States? Imagine if African Americans, indigenous people, Latinos, etc., Asian Americans were forced out. Let's say it would start with a religion, and then let's say eventually it would become ethnic cleansing. So I just want to try to put you in try to put you in the Palestinian people's shoes so you can understand what they've been dealing with for decades, actually. And there's a gentleman here I want to show you. It says, fights to protect their only home from Israeli settlements in the West Bank. So you can see a family here going through this experience as well.
This is the only house standing on this hill in the occupied West Bank. Here, there are 3 illegal Israeli settlements, an illegal settlement outpost, an Israeli military camp, and 1 determined Palestinian family. To stay, they have to take extreme measures. They want to protect themselves from attacks by Israeli settlers.
We can't leave the house alone. My sisters got married and I couldn't even go to their weddings. They are always hovering around. I can't even get to work. One of us has to stay home because they might come at any time.
Okay, that piece there is very important because basically what he's saying to you is that they can't leave the house vacant. Somebody has to stay inside the house so that the Israeli settlers don't come and demolish the home once it's empty. I want to take this a step further and apply this to the United States. Now, we have a big problem in this country with gentrification, not exactly the same as what's happening in Israel. But when we talk about displacement, people are also being displaced here in the US too, and it's being done through gentrification. And that's being led by a lot of people like to blame it on the professionals and say that they moved there and, that's what caused the rent to increase. And there's truth to that. But the reason why you have these luxury condos continuing to prop up, at least around here in Boston, DC went through this as well, Seattle, New York City, is because the city allows real estate developers to come in and buy up the land and the property. And the idea is that you will eventually own nothing. They want us to become a society of renters. But what you've seen over the years is you've seen a lot of these people that grew up in those working class communities, particularly here in Boston, African Americans that grew up in Roxbury or Dorchester or Mattapan, pushed out because they do allow the developers to come in. And when you build new luxury condos, obviously that is going to drive up the price of everything else around it. So those people who grew up in those neighborhoods can no longer afford to live there because the landlords will increase the rent to match, what's happening with the new development. And the people are slowly pushed out and they're pushed to the South Shore, pushed to the North Shore. And that is why if you come to Boston today, you don't see the same culture that once existed here back in the 80s or the 70s, even like the early 90s. The actual culture of what Boston was is gone. And we have become more, a city of chains, and there's a lot of professionals. If you go to the North End, what was the Italian neighborhood in Boston, you'll see Italian restaurants still, but you won't see those families living in that neighborhood anymore. They were pushed out. The Palestinian people are being pushed out of the West Bank. They're also being killed in the West Bank. It's like, if you don't leave, we're going to try to find a way to make you leave. It's crazy when you think about it.
Musab says the attacks are getting more frequent and more violent.
In 2002, the settlers burned the house and my dad had a heart attack a few days after.
He believes the Israeli settlement project has one main goal: to push Palestinians off of their lands.
Yep.
But this is the only land they've known, the only country they belong to, the only home they own for generations.
We were here before the settlers. My grandfather built the house in the 1970s. Then my father and mother inherited it. We are here protecting it as well and will pass it on to our kids.
Illegal Israeli settlements and outposts have been historically established on hilltops. Over time, they expand further, all at the expense of Palestinians.
If this family leaves their home, the area would be filled with Israeli settlers living illegally, as seen in many other places in the occupied West Bank. So far, the Safan family says they're the guardians of the hill, and they want to keep it that way. Nida Ibrahim, Al Jazeera, the occupied West Bank.
The occupied West Bank. Again, they are living under occupation. This is why when people say there's no occupation, that is a lie. When people say there is no apartheid, that is a lie. What Israel has done and is continuing to do to the Palestinian people is against international law. Now, they'll tell you that the settlements are illegal, but nobody is arresting the settlers. Nobody is holding them accountable. No, Israel is putting Palestinians in the West Bank. They're pulling them out of their homes and they're putting them in the prisons. And now you have Israel selling homes in the West Bank to US citizens and to Canadian citizens. And nobody's stepping in to stop it. Whatever you do, do not stop talking about what is happening in Israel. No matter who calls for a ceasefire or who comes forward when they're brave enough to say, hey, what's happening is wrong, don't stop talking about it. Because a lot of people that I have met had no idea this was even happening until the war started in Gaza.